Has someone who deeply hurt you ever come back and apologized? Probably not. Because the people who hurt us the most rarely come back. And you just sit there with the anger, the ache, the question that never gets answered. But what if forgiveness was never about the other person? What if it was always, entirely, about you? This is the story of a 69-year-old woman in North Carolina who spent 20 years waiting for an apology that would never come, unable to even admit to herself that she was waiting, and how she finally set herself free. Her name was Dorothy Bellingham. She lived in Brevard, North Carolina, on Chestnut Road, in a small wood-sided house whose paint peeled a little more each year. The kind of place where everyone knows your name and your business, whether you like it or not. On her front porch sat two rocking chairs, both bought on the same day, one for her, one that always stayed empty for 20 years. In 2005, Dorothy and her closest friend Ruth Ann, her closest friend of over 30 years, ran a small flower shop together on Main Street. Petal and bloom. Dorothy did the arrangements, her hands always caked in soil, her cuticles perpetually stained with flower water. Ruth Ann kept the books. They'd built it from nothing. A small business loan backed by a personal guarantee. $40,000 Dorothy had scraped together, counted down to the last penny, and 17-hour workdays that turned her fingers green. For 6 years, it was the happiest time of Dorothy's life, maybe the only happy time. Customers came from 3 counties away for wedding bouquets, just so the flowers would come from Dorothy's hands. Ruth Ann called her partner for life. Dorothy believed it. Then, on a Tuesday morning in November, Dorothy showed up to the shop the way she always did, 2 paper cups of coffee in hand. The lights were off. The register was empty. The business account? Zeroed out. Ruth Ann's desk? Cleared off. Like she'd never sat there, not even a paperclip left behind. No note, no call, no explanation, gone. Along with every penny Dorothy had in this world. Along with 30 years of trust. The bank came within a week, faster than the betrayal itself. That personal guarantee? It was all on Dorothy's neck. She lost the shop, then the house. At 50 years old, with 1 suitcase and a lump in her throat she couldn't swallow down, and a deep rage that burned like an ember nothing could put out, she moved into a rented room above the hardware store. You'd think time would put that fire out. It didn't. For 20 years, Dorothy relived that Tuesday morning every single night the moment she closed her eyes. The empty register, the cleared-off desk, the silence where her best friend should have been. The heaviest thing a person can leave behind. Lying in the dark, eyes fixed on the ceiling, she'd have entire conversations with Ruth Ann, saying everything she never got to say. Some nights she cried until her pillow was soaked. Most nights she lay there with her jaw clenched so tight her dentist told her she was grinding her teeth to dust. She couldn't let new people in. Ruth Ann had locked the door and taken the key with her. The ladies at Grace Baptist invited her to the quilting group. For 20 years, Dorothy relived that Tuesday morning every single night the moment she closed her eyes. She went once, sat at the end of the table and never went back. The truth was simple and ugly. She was afraid. If Ruth Ann could do that, anyone could. This wasn't a thought anymore. It was a truth Dorothy knew in her body, and her body was keeping score. Psychologists have a name for this. The body holds what the mind refuses to let go of. Her doctor at the Brevard Medical Center, with the patience of someone who'd been repeating the same thing for years, told her that her migraines and stomach problems were linked to chronic stress. "You're carrying something heavy, Dorothy," Dr. Patel said. "You need to let it go." Dorothy nodded politely, wearing that rehearsed smile she'd perfected over 20 years. Nothing changed, because Dorothy believed that letting go was a betrayal, this time of herself. Every Sunday at Grace Baptist, Pastor James preached about mercy, about letting go, saying the same words a little louder each week. Dorothy sat in the back row, her usual spot, the row closest to the door, and felt her blood pressure rise. Easy for you to say, she thought. Nobody cleaned out your savings. You talk about forgiveness like it's free. Like it's as easy as picking something up off a shelf and putting it back. It's not. It costs you everything. Then her granddaughter changed everything with 7 words. Lily was 9 years old. Sharp, sometimes painfully sharp. Curious, never afraid to say what was on her mind. One Saturday, Dorothy was watching her while her son worked. Lily wanted to call her friend Maya. Dorothy hesitated, her stomach knotting on reflex. She didn't know Maya's family. She said no. Lily looked at her with those big brown eyes, unblinking, with the heaviest thing a child can wield. Pure curiosity. Grandma, why don't you ever trust anyone? 7 words. They landed like stones dropped into still water. The ripples spreading outward. Dorothy opened her mouth. Her lips trembled, but nothing came out. Because the honest answer was this. Because 20 years ago, someone I loved proved that people can't be trusted, with an absolute, irreversible certainty, and I never recovered. That night, completely alone in her kitchen, the fluorescent light casting its pale white glow on her face, Dorothy sat with the ticking of the clock and the hum of the refrigerator. She thought about Lily's question, over and over, like a record skipping on the same line. 20 years of locked doors and clenched fists. Fists clenched so tight the nail marks were pressed into her palms, and it hit her like ice water. Ruth Ann wasn't suffering. Maybe she never had. Ruth Ann had moved on with her life years ago. Research shows that the person holding the grudge suffers far more than the one who caused the wound. The bitterness, the stress, the loneliness. Dorothy had carried all of it until her shoulders caved. Every day, for 20 years, she was punishing herself for someone else's betrayal. She was both the prison guard and the prisoner. The next morning, without an appointment, she walked into Pastor James's office, her steps both determined and afraid. The pastor looked surprised. Dorothy had never come to him privately, not once in 20 years. "I need to talk," she said, her voice fragile but resolute. Then she told him everything, from beginning to end for the first time, without leaving anything out. The pastor listened without interrupting, without saying a single word, as if the silence itself could be a kind of salve. When Dorothy finished, her hands on the desk, breathless, he said something she didn't expect. "Dorothy, forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was right. It means you've decided not to let it run your life anymore. You're not letting Ruth Ann off the hook. You're letting yourself off the hook." That night, she sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper, the lamp drawing a circle of light on her face. She wrote a letter she would never send. Her hand trembled when she pressed the pen to the paper on the first line. 20 years poured onto that page. 20 years that couldn't fit in a single drop of ink. The anger, the grief, the loneliness, the sleepless nights, the friendship she couldn't build, the trust she couldn't give. She wrote until her hand cramped, and when she put down the final period, she couldn't open her fingers. Then she walked to the backyard, struck a match. The small flame lit up her face for a moment, and watched the paper curl and turn to ash under the cold night sky. The smoke rose and disappeared among the stars. She whispered words that felt strange in her mouth, like a language she was learning for the first time. "God, I don't want to carry this anymore. I'm giving it to you, all of it." She didn't feel instant peace. Life isn't a movie. But when she woke up the next morning, before she even opened her eyes, something was different. No migraine. For the first time in weeks, she woke up without that iron band around her head. Her head light, as if someone had been loosening that band all through the night. Maybe a small thing, but it felt enormous. The following Sunday, instead of the back row, she sat in the 3rd row, her back to the door. The Sunday after that, she joined the quilting group, this time without turning back at the door. The oldest member, Margaret, handed her a needle, peering over her glasses, and said, "We saved you a spot, Dorothy." The women welcomed her, as if she'd always belonged there. No questions asked, no explanations expected, and maybe she had. She'd just been too locked up to walk through the door. A month later, Lily asked if Maya could come over. Dorothy said yes, this time without her stomach tying in knots. She watched the 2 girls run around the backyard laughing, leaning back in the porch chair, her hands loose on her knees, and something opened in her chest. Not pain this time. Light. On a Wednesday evening at Grace Baptist, Dorothy stood up during testimony, her fingers gripping the edge of the pew for a moment. Her voice was shaking, but she didn't stop. For 20 years, I waited for someone to apologize. For 20 years, I carried a burden I didn't have to carry. I carried it until my back was hunched from the weight. The person who wronged me had long since moved on with their life. The only one still trapped was me, the one who both set the trap and stayed caught in it. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand without shame. Forgiveness isn't saying that what happened was okay. It's saying I'm not letting this steal one more day from me. Psychology research confirms what Dorothy discovered, with numbers and cold hard data. Chronic unforgiveness is linked to higher rates of heart disease, a weakened immune system, and a shorter lifespan. Letting go of a grudge has been shown to lower blood pressure, reduce anxiety, and improve sleep. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's one of the bravest choices a person can make, because it requires letting go of the anger that the pain rightfully earned. Maybe there's someone in your life who will never apologize. Someone whose name makes your stomach clench every time you think of it. And you're still waiting. Because you deserve it. Because you need that pain to be acknowledged. But what if the apology never comes? Are you willing to stay in that prison for 1 more year? 10 more years? 10 more after that? It sets you free. God doesn't ask you to forgive for their sake, but so you can finally breathe again, deeply without your chest tightening. If this story stirred something in you, it'll probably stir something in someone you know too. See you in the next story. Until then, what are you carrying that you don't need to carry? Whose burden are you hauling on your shoulders? Let it go. Let your hands be empty.